The sun was sinking behind the dusty ridges, painting the horizon in hues of fire and gold when Abigail stumbled across the dirt road. Her dress torn, her boots caked in mud, and her voice raw from calling out for help that never came. She had been running for 2 days, fleeing men who had cornered her in a saloon town where debts and dangers swallowed up the weak. And though she had nothing left but desperation, her heart refused to give in. Her legs buckled, and she fell hard against the dirt, the wind stealing her last breath as she whispered, "Please, I'm begging you," though no one was near enough to hear. But fate had other plans. From atop his horse, a towering figure in a wide-brimmed hat slowed to a halt. Ethan Cross, a rancher known across the frontier for his stubborn pride and silence, had been heading home after trading cattle in town when he spotted the crumpled figure lying in the road. At first he thought it was another drifter, someone not his concern, but then he saw the way her hand weakly lifted toward him. Trembling with both fear and hope, he swung down, boots thudding against the ground, and crouched beside her. "Ma'am, you alive?" he asked, his voice deep and edged with suspicion. Abigail forced her eyes open, and when their gazes met, Ethan froze. For years, he had built walls higher than the fences on his land, locking out memories of a past scarred by betrayal and loss. But in her eyes, wide, pleading, yet fierce, he saw something that shook him. Without another word, he slid his arms beneath her, lifting her up as though she weighed nothing, and carried her to his horse. She gasped softly, her lips forming words too faint to catch. But he heard one clear enough. "Don't leave me." Ethan mounted with her in his arms, pressing her close to shield her from the night air. And though he told himself he was only doing what any decent man would, deep down he knew the truth. This woman was about to change everything. The time Ethan reached his ranch, night had fallen, and the coyotes' cries echoed across the plains. He carried Abigail inside his cabin, laying her carefully on the worn leather sofa, his brow furrowed with questions he had no intention of asking, not yet. He lit a lantern, its glow softening the hard lines of his face, and fetched water, bread, and a blanket. She stirred, her eyes fluttering open, and for the first time her voice found strength. Why did you stop for me?" she whispered. Ethan's gaze hardened, though something in his chest twisted. "Because leaving you there would have been the same as murder," he said simply. Abigail pressed the blanket tighter, her body shivering from more than cold. She had not known kindness in so long that his blunt mercy pierced her heart like a knife. As the hours passed, fragments of her story tumbled out. How she had been forced into debt after her father's farm failed. How a saloon keeper tried to claim her as payment. How she fled with nothing but the clothes on her back. Ethan listened, silent but watchful, his hands clenched on his knees. He knew the cruelty of men, knew how the West swallowed the vulnerable whole. And though he had sworn long ago never to let anyone depend on him again, the thought of sending her away made his stomach burn with unease. The next morning, Abigail woke to the smell of coffee and the sound of roosters. Ethan was already outside, working the corral, his movements steady and precise, every swing of rope and snap of reins revealing the discipline of a man who lived by routine. She stood at the window watching him, and for the first time in years, she felt safe. But safety was fragile in the West. That same day, as Ethan rode into town for supplies, whispers spread quickly, of a woman seen on his ranch, of Abigail's escape from the saloon, and of the men who still wanted her back. When Ethan returned, his jaw was tight, his eyes darker than storm clouds. "They're asking about you," he told her, his voice low. "Men who won't stop till they've got what they think is theirs." Fear prickled her skin. But Ethan's hand clenched the edge of the table, his knuckles white. "You stay here under my roof, under my name," he growled. "Ain't no one taking you while I'm..." Breathing. Abigail's breath caught at the fierce promise in his words. For the first time in her life, someone wasn't just helping her survive, they were willing to fight for her. The days that followed tested both of them in ways they hadn't expected. Abigail learned the rhythm of ranch life, rising at dawn to help in the kitchen, tending to the hens, and even daring to assist in the stables. Ethan watched her quietly, trying not to notice how her laughter, rare and delicate, made the cabin feel less empty, or how her determination to pull her weight softened something inside him he thought long dead. Yet the threat loomed ever closer. Men rode past the ranch at night, shadows lingering at the fence line, reminding Ethan that trouble was circling like wolves. One evening, as Abigail brushed down the horses, she turned to him with a trembling voice. "You don't have to risk everything for me," she said, eyes shimmering with unshed tears. Ethan stepped closer, his presence filling the barn, his voice gravelly. "You begged me not to leave you, Abigail." "I didn't, and I won't, not now. Not ever." The air between them thickened. And though she looked away, her heart pounded in her chest, every beat echoing the truth she was too afraid to name. She was falling in love with him. But love in the Wild West was a dangerous thing. 2 nights later, the saloon keeper and his hired guns came for her. Torches lit the darkness as they surrounded the ranch, their leaders shouting for Ethan to hand her over. Abigail clutched the rifle Ethan had pressed into her hands, terror and defiance battling in her veins. Ethan strode outside, his silhouette framed against the firelight, his voice booming with unshakable resolve. "She's under my roof. Under my protection. You want her? You go through me." The standoff exploded in gunfire, bullets tearing through the night. Abigail screamed his name as he fought with a fury that left no doubt. Ethan Cross was a man who feared nothing except losing her. When the last shot rang out, silence fell heavy. Ethan staggered, blood staining his shirt. But still he stood, revolver smoking in his hand. Abigail rushed to him, tears streaming, pressing her hands against his wound. "Why would you do this?" she sobbed. His gaze locked on hers, fierce and unyielding despite the pain. "Because when I pulled you up that day, I wasn't just saving you. I was saving myself." Ethan's wound was not mortal, though it kept him bedridden for weeks. During that time, Abigail became his strength, caring for him with a devotion that surprised them both. She cooked, cleaned, and even rode into town for supplies, facing the whispers of townsfolk with her head held high. Every night she sat by his side, reading softly or simply holding his hand. And in the quiet of the cabin, something unspoken grew between them, something stronger than fear, deeper than survival. When spring came and the prairie bloomed with wildflowers, Ethan finally rose from his bed, his body scarred but his spirit fiercer than ever. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky in molten gold, he led Abigail to the edge of the pasture where the cattle grazed. He turned to her, his eyes softer than she had ever seen. "The day I found you, you begged me not to leave you," he said, his voice breaking slightly. "I didn't then. I won't now. But I don't want you under my roof just because you need protection. I want you here because this is where you belong, because you're the only fire in this empty life of mine." Abigail's tears glistened as she covered her mouth, her heart overflowing. He stepped closer, his rough hand cupping her cheek, and in that moment he kissed her, not as a rancher claiming what was his, but as a man surrendering to love he could no longer deny. The world around them seemed to fall away, leaving only the two of them bound by a promise written in fire and blood, struggle and hope. When they finally pulled apart, Abigail whispered, "I begged you once to save me, but now I beg you to keep me." Ethan smiled, rare and unguarded, his forehead resting against hers. "You're already mine, Abigail, and I'm yours, till the end of time." The ranch that once echoed with silence now carried the laughter of love, the kind of love born in the dust and danger of the Wild West, a love fierce enough to stand against storms, gunfire, and fate itself. And for Ethan Cross and Abigail, their story was no longer about saving or surviving. It was about living, together, unshakable, unstoppable, and forever. And that, dear friends, is the unforgettable tale of a woman's desperate plea, a rancher's unshakable strength, and a love forged in the dust and danger of the Wild West. If this story moved your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more powerful Wild West love stories that will keep you hooked till the very last word.